TV. I'm your host, Charlie Stivers. Today's episode is pretty cool. I get to interview Jacqui Cooper, who is a crypto mom and early adopter. And she has written a book about crypto for the family and has a ton of resources for a new user, experienced users, as well as a great compliance library. And we get to intermingle some stories about her journey, and then we get to touch on a crypto cruise that we've been working on together. So let's jump into it, and we'll see you on the interview. All right. Welcome to Goose TV. I'm your host, Charlie Stivers. And in today's episode, we are interviewing a crypto mom, crypto entrepreneur, and we'll get to dig into her background, working on some really cool projects that I'm excited about. Bottom line, she's all about helping people become crypto literate, which I am all about. And got to know her through a crypto cruise that we're working on, and so we'll touch on that as well. Welcome to Goose TV, Jacqui Cooper.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I am thrilled to be able to share my journey, so maybe it can inspire others. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and I think what kind of spurred the conversation is the next issue of Goose Magazine is all about women's leadership. And we were just kind of talking freely, and we're like, oh, we should interview each other. So thank you for coming on my show. And like you said, you know, I think there's going to be some storylines that people can relate to, some women can relate to. And so let's get into it. Um, we got a few things to talk about. Let's talk about your book. That really caught my attention first, and that's not on your background here. So let's cover that first. And that
I was going to actually, again, I think women need to give themselves credit for the work that they do. And so I was about to say which one, because
oh,
I've written more than one book. But for some of you that might be curious about the books that I've written, my background's education as well as in law. So that's sort of how I kind of started the journey of writing, because I saw that there was a gap between the content that was available for families. And I wanted to make sure that there was, and I love the idea of reading aloud with your family. And so I wanted to create something that was not just technical, but that had a fun element to it. So that way there could be a conversation, a question and answer. And it might be actually the child reading and answering the parents' questions, because it doesn't, on both sides of the equation. some young individuals are more knowledgeable than their parents on what's going on within blockchain and crypto and gaming and tokens. So, but the book that you were mentioning is the Bitcoin Cinderella book. And the Bitcoin Cinderella book I wrote, I guess now 2 years ago, and it's a real Cinderella story. And the mom in this version does not die. She is actually a blockchain engineer who works with Satoshi, who I took some literary license with. Satoshi, for those that don't know, is we don't really know who Satoshi is, but Satoshi could be an individual or a group of people. And Satoshi created Bitcoin, the Bitcoin blockchain. So I had the mom working with Satoshi, and the dad is a traditional banker. So there was a little bit of conflict there. And I'm not going to give away the plot, but basically she leaves something for Cinderella, and then Cinderella discovers what it is, which you can kind of imply from the title, it was Bitcoin. And she learns about wallets, she learns about the metaverse, she learns about NFTs, and starts her journey, and she meets her prince. And her prince is also very knowledgeable about this new age version of technology, this innovative technology. So he wanted the ball in a metaverse as opposed to his parents who wanted it in the palace. So again, all the vocabulary that someone might need to understand if they're starting to step into this space it's woven into the book. And then there's a glossary behind and all sorts of things.
Good. All the terms that people need to know, the jargon.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's QR codes to pull them back into the online space where that's where all the action is happening.
Oh, very cool. And then you are entrepreneurial. Can you maybe share a little bit about your journey and how you discovered crypto, Bitcoin,
Yeah.
or and then we also tie in are I like to know where people sit before we know where they stand. Are you primarily a Bitcoiner, or are you all about blockchain and crypto too?
So my journey has kind of evolved and transformed, just like our spaces. I knew nothing about this blockchain world when I guess I learned about it 7 or 8 years ago now. The years keep passing by, so I have to add on more now. But what drew me to it was something that happened when I was in college. And that was my major was multidisciplinary. So it was science, technology, and society. And that was I really liked the idea of being able to dive into a lot of different things. So when I started to learn about blockchain, and I I was very curious about cryptocurrency, not understanding it, but it made sense to me as to what it was and why people were looking at it. And I was fortunate enough to meet a woman in Scotland who helped me open up my first wallet. And so, so the first coin that I invested in was an altcoin. And altcoin, for those that don't know, is something that is different than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the grandfather of the coins, and anything after Bitcoin is called an altcoin. So by investing in this altcoin, it had an ecosystem. So I was able to, if I wanted to buy air or food or other objects with it. And that gave me a whole different perspective than just purchasing on an exchange. So I was never really very interested in the trading aspect. I was more interested in the utility aspect of it. And then in my journey, I was introduced to Bitcoin. And as a result of that, I became a Bitcoin miner, which I am. And I like the idea of Bitcoin dropping into my wallet. And those are the rewards. And that's a whole nother book that I wrote called The Bitcoin Cinderella and the Seven Dwarves, which talks about the history of Bitcoin. And it takes
Love
place
it.
in El Salvador. And Cinderella goes over to El Salvador to meet her cousin Snow White, and learning about Bitcoin, they have a whole nother journey there. So, and I'm in the process of writing 2 more books about 2 more different topics. But so in answer to your question, I believe qualified in almost everything. And I say that because being a lawyer, this is what I'm saying to everyone who's listening, you have to do your own research. You cannot believe the hype. You have to really make sure that whatever you invest, you're willing to lose, and that you're not putting your mortgage or college fund or the basics on the line. So with that being said, I definitely believe more as I'm going in Bitcoin, because as I've kind of matured in this space, I realize the true decentralization of Bitcoin, as opposed to the tokens and the protocols that are built on Ethereum. And there's nothing wrong with that, but those are companies, and just like any company, there could be a problem with liquidity. And when there's a problem with liquidity, then that means that companies can go bankrupt or problem. And, just like traditional businesses, what's different about Bitcoin is that it's not owned by any one person. The machines churn it out. It's a mathematical code. You get your Bitcoin into your wallet. You can spend your Bitcoin whenever you don't spend it. It stays there and it might appreciate. It's a whole different level than a traditional token, which also can appreciate, but can also be pulled if, let's say, that someone in the company decides that they want to mint everything and walk away. So you really have to do the education. And that's one of the reasons, actually, one of the many reasons why I created the Blockchain Legal Institute. So.
Love it. And then touch on Crypto Mom. Is that just your brand or part of your message?
So, it's funny how that evolved. I have 4 different talk shows. And when I first started to explore the cryptocurrency area, I realized that even though I have many degrees and I'm very educated, it was very difficult for me to navigate or to learn about resources. And I thought, okay, let me, like you, in terms of the media side, let me be responsible and share resources with people, so that way they can learn and educate themselves on their journey. So I started a talk show called Crypto Mom 2. And it's 2 because Hester Pierce, who was part of the SEC, is 1 because the media dubbed her as Crypto Mom. So it is trademarked, and I didn't want to step on her toes. So Crypto Mom 2 has about 20,000 followers across all social media. So it's grown authentically over the many years. And, it's that with the Bitcoin Cinderella are 2 brands, I guess, that I'm kind of navigating, because also I know that women are, curious about finance, and I want to make sure that they're in the know as well.
Love that. And I love that your first exposure was traveling or on a global basis. I think one of the challenges that we face here in America is we're stuck in this comfort bubble, so to speak, where there's a lot more adoption overseas, especially in countries that are considered emerging or developing. So running into it in another country, tell us a little bit about that experience and how you were able to actually pay for things and enjoy travel without barrier or having to exchange currencies.
So I personally chose not to use my cryptocurrency to buy items, but I was appreciative of the fact that I had the choice and ability. And my friend, who was in the crypto space, she still is in many ways, but she's doing some other things right now. She often would add to her card. And I do want to say, you have to choose your credit cards or debit cards in a very careful way, because sometimes when you're adding funds to these cryptocurrency type of cards, there are restrictions that you might not know about. So you really have to read the terms and conditions, and not be, as many of us are, click yes and just keep on going, because sometimes they will keep your funds for a certain amount of time, like a CD, and that can cause you problems if you can't access the crypto that you keep thinking. So you really have to read this. Now, things might have changed over time, but so the card that she had loaded her crypto on was one that she could use at different hotels or other places. And actually, even now, there are many major businesses who at their sales desk, when you go and you're buying things, they do accept crypto. They do accept Bitcoin. You know, some of them, I didn't create the list in front of me, but I want to say some of the major pizza places and other, and you know, major vendors, I think maybe even Walmart and some of the others, I could be wrong. So, but you don't even realize, the salesperson doesn't even have to know, because you put your card in and you swipe it. And so all that internal transactions, whether it's a Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or a card that has the crypto instead of a euro or instead of a dollar, it just debits it from the account, you know, just like PayPal right now or Venmo. So it's an easy point of sale transaction. And the vendor just gets paid for the product. And it's very easy. And there are many point of sale companies right now that are doing this to help traditional businesses accept crypto.
Yeah. Have you used any of the Lightning Network stuff yet?
Yes and no. So I am a Bitcoin miner owner of a rig, but I'm also a node owner. So I have, that was downloaded, the Bitcoin protocol was downloaded. It's very cool to see all the little clicks and things like that happening. But so I also downloaded the Lightning Network on there. And one of the wallets, well, I was trying to help a nonprofit. So one of the wallets that I was navigating needed a Lightning. So I'm still not very comfortable talking about it because doesn't flow off my tongue. But yes, I am learning about Lightning, which for those that don't know about Lightning, there are, it's a second layer on the protocol, and it's to help with speed of the transactions, as well as to group the transactions. So you're not charged every time that you buy a cup of coffee. It could be that you have sort of like a debit card. Think of a gift card where you have a $25 gift card, and then you know, you go to I'll use Starbucks as an example. You go to Starbucks, you use $10 off of it, you still have $15. And then finally you're at the $25 mark and you don't have any more on it. So on the Lightning Network, if you had the $25 card, so to speak, they're not going to charge that card. They'll just keep debiting it down, taking into account all your transactions. And once you reach that mark, then it will pay over and everyone in the system gets paid. So it's making it very much more efficient as more people are using the network, because again, you want the cryptocurrency network to be as fast as the traditional money network in order to encourage people to use it.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. I've had another guest on here that was very much into the Lightning Network. So if you're watching, you can look at some of our past episodes on YouTube and catch that. And yeah, it's just the payment rails, like you said, is a lot quicker. And then I don't know if you saw it in our edition of Goose, where we actually went into a 7th and 8th grade entrepreneur fair, and just picture a science fair, but it's all little mini businesses. So each of the businesses had $50 stake to launch their business. And then we heard about this. One of our friends here in Denver's wife is one of the teachers. So we raised about $500 from the Rocky Mountain Bitcoiners. And so we went in with the Lightning wallets, and we showed each of the kids how to put it on their phone and gave them each $5 in Bitcoin, and they went shopping at their friends' businesses.
I love it. Oh my
It
gosh, I
was,
love that.
yeah, it was really cool. So I wrote about that experience, and I mean, the 7th to 8th graders just got it. I mean, they're like, okay, we got it. And so the mantra of the day, hey, mister, I accept Bitcoin. So we had a ton of fun with it.
I'm gonna have to talk to those students, you know, to have them read my book and give me a review.
Yes, right. Oh, I mean, the young generation, they just, like you said, I mean, some of them are teaching their parents, especially on the NFT side too, because that's the cool looking stuff. That's what, the celebrities were into. So, anything that kind of brings awareness or, what people can relate to real world, I think is helpful.
Yeah, I do want to mention for those that are listening, my books are translated into Spanish as well as Creole and soon French. I believe in trying to have the books translated into multiple languages, and so more are on the slate, as you go. So it's English on one side and the other language on the other. So that way, especially if you have a
Wow.
bilingual family, you can have whoever it needs either language, or if you're learning the language, then you can do it that way too.
Neat. Well, thank you for sharing that. Let's jump into the more technical or higher level stuff. Uh, let's get into Blockchain Legal Institute and what you're building there.
Yeah, so over the years, I have what's called a spam email where I would sign up for, a lot of newsletters or information so I could build my background knowledge in the blockchain cryptocurrency world. And I never knew how important that was going to end up being. Because after I wrote the Bitcoin Cinderella and the Seven Dwarves book, and CleanSpark actually sponsored the book so I could give it away at the May 2023 Bitcoin conference in Miami, I was standing at the booth, and as I mentioned, I'm a lawyer, and a young attorney came up to me, and I was giving the books out. She came up and she said, well, how did you get into Bitcoin or blockchain law? And I said, well, I'm not doing traditional law, but I'm happy to give you information. And I know, Charlie, I've shared this story with you, but like when she walked away, I looked at my founder, now my founder, he was my associate at that point. And I said, there is no centralized library for all the decentralized resources that are out there. It's been many years that I've been accumulating all this information. She can definitely do this, but it might be a little hard. And that's true for anyone. Again, you don't always know where to go or what to trust, and there's a lot of content out there. So I turned to him because he's on the tech side, and I drew out my idea. I said, I want to create this. And he said, sure. So we did a 2-month hackathon. And in July, the Blockchain Legal Institute was launched. And the purpose of it is multifaceted. It is to be a centralized library, and I'll share screen in a second, but it's also provide educational resources from workshops to networking to events and news. And so I really view it as a blockchain Wikipedia, just like I view my Bitcoin Cinderella books as the Harry Potter on the blockchain. I mean, I see all these things growing and networking, and in the last, I guess, well, this is January now, so it's been just 5 months that the Institute has, been around. We've done some phenomenal things. I mean, we have, as you'll see in a short while, we have relationships with governments, with universities, with businesses, major businesses, with major associations. We've held a global summit, a virtual global summit where the Premier of Bermuda was our keynote speaker, and we have 3 hours of content. We have an internship cohort now where we have a legal intern and 6 other interns, and I'm doing major legal research that's going to help our court system. And we're just doing a lot of great things, and the team is growing. And then, like as you mentioned, besides having the 2 virtual global summits, one in March and one in October, we're about to launch a cruise. And it's the crypto blockchain DeFi conversation cruise, a play on the CBDC, which, if people don't know what a CBDC is, it's a central bank currency, which there's a lot of controversy around currencies that are controlled by central banks because of a variety of concerns. But that was sort of a play on the words. And this cruise is going to have 12 hours of panels, and we're going to the islands. And so it'll be a combination of both fun and education. And for those that are coming on board, you'll be able to write off as a business trip to the extent allowed by law.
Little bit of a catch.
A little bit of a catch. You always have to kind of put in those disclaimers. So, do you want me to share screen and show?
Yeah, that'd be great. BLI, the cruise, sure.
Okay, so let's take a look. So can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So as I mentioned, we have a news feed, and you'll see that my WordPress is always open because I'm always looking if there's something I need to upload. We have a news feed, we have a continuing legal education and a continuing education and PD area with a variety of different topics that both lawyers as well as other individuals and business people can sign up for to continue their education. We have an artificial intelligence space, Bitcoin business space, and Ethereum space, blockchain use cases. We have the laws from around the United States, as well as the digital economic zone, Catawba. And then we also have laws from around the world. I'm the media ambassador for the Global Blockchain Business Council, for which I'm very excited to be that. And I'm also the talk show host for the Government Blockchain Association, and also working with a co-founder of the co-chair rather of the legal working group. And we're working with other associations to develop relationships with. And then we have a vertical for lawyers and accountants who are trying to develop practice or need to be updated or already have clients and need to know. We have a free side. And then we have an honorary advisory committee, which has some very distinguished people on it. We have a BLI consulting group. So if businesses need consulting, we can refer people to help them on different topics. We have a speaker bureau. We have events, and I'll get back to our event in a second. We have members. We have our businesses, associations, from all around the world, from India to Mexico to Europe to Nordic blockchain, you name it. And then we have our interns and about. And then I'll just give a quick tour. There is a video tour of the library. And then there's the ability for you to join. Then there's information about the last conference and the next conference. And these are some of our partners. And then we have, I spoke at the Bermuda Tech Summit, and then the legal research. And then these were the topics from the last group of panels that we had at the October event. So a lot of things have happened since our launching in July. And I know that where this is going is going to be richer and, a lot of resources that we're going to be adding on a daily basis. So here is a tool, and that's why it's called BLI.tools, because it's a tool for everyone.
Yeah, and as you know, with the Bitcoin ETF, the Fair Accounting Standards Board classification of Bitcoin is changing for 2024. I think we're going to see a lot more businesses accepting Bitcoin, putting it on their balance sheets, because the asset class is now considered a commodity, whereas before it was an intangible. So that's going to bring a lot of value to businesses' asset column. So that's, not only do we have the Bitcoin ETF coming out, but these accounting changes are going to drive a lot of adoption from institutions, businesses, enterprises. So that's impressive resource for not only just the user, but a larger audience. That's
Yeah,
great.
and we definitely look at it globally because supply chain is global these days. Again, we don't live in a vacuum. And even though COVID sort of showed us that each of us can be in our own little house as a vacuum, but the thing is that, our world is so interconnected these days. We really have to be thinking, how do we do business to support each other? And Bitcoin was created to create economic freedom for people that might be unbanked. And there's, been a lot of discussion about that. I know El Salvador has, was forefront with adopting Bitcoin as its main currency. So there's always, pain points for growth and for change. But I think that we'll eventually live in a hybrid world. I know that it's cryptocurrency and Bitcoin have become more popular from the perspective that big businesses are now looking at it as a way to do business and make money. And as a result, now we probably have more of a mass appeal and mass education, while before it was kind of just the fringe. So I think as more banks and entities start to add it, they've been adding it, but they might not have been vocal about it. You know, and so I guess I need to clarify. So as they see that it's okay to speak about it, then because it might attract new clients to them, you know, because then they might be the cool kid on the block because they're accepting Bitcoin, you know, or a crypto token or whatever, then more people will be asking, well, what is this? And maybe I should learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the services I offer is just helping businesses accept crypto or Bitcoin. And once they hear they can turn it to dollars or stable coins immediately, they're like, oh, I should have done this a long time ago. Because the other thing that they realize is when they're doing business overseas, the currency conversions, the time it takes, the wiring, and when you can literally have a settlement of business done within minutes, they're like, that's an amazing solution. And that's where this is all headed. So again, checking off those lists on the legal aspects and some of these details that they're curious about is valuable.
Yeah, I mean, there is, you definitely save on transaction costs, you know, so that helps businesses in their bottom line when they're paying less fees for every transaction. But just as you mentioned, it is important to know about, you know, knowing your customer, the KYC, the anti-money laundering, making sure that you're not a money broker. You know, there's a lot of different nuances that have to come into play when you're in business. And so that's why it's important for your team to, whether it's your accountant or lawyer or consultant, to at least know where to go. And when I was in law school, they said you can't really know everything, but you can know how to do research in your library. And your library, your law library, your resources are really there. You're still going to do the analysis, but at least you have to, I know what BLI has now. I know what it doesn't have. I know what I want to put on it, you know, being transparent with everyone. But I know that, you know, by having, as people join BLI, they're going to see the growth and the change, and it will, just like everything else, it's going to be like Amazon. You know, it started off with one product and now it's huge marketplace. And I see BLI being a blockchain Amazon as well. So let's put it that way.
Hey, yes. And it mostly digital. You have some print, obviously. Um, could they order it in any of those materials in print?
Yeah, so you know, right now the way that the BLI is structured is everything is hyperlinked to the original spot. So basically, there might be a legal overlay in terms of like what are the issues, but let's say that they need to go to a business platform or a government platform. There's a hyperlink right there. So that way they can then do their own research, because part of the challenge is um, I I have that one spam email of all the blockchain information, but then I have to go through all those emails. Every time something hits, I have to go through and read. So what I wanted to do with BLI is to make it a time saver. So if you know that you need a certain topic or a certain resource, you can go to the topic. And you know, that's why I'm saying it's developing, because as I see more topics that are missed, I'm adding more topics, because again, for example, in the food industry, FDA, they just passed, you know, a law dealing with digital information. And I don't want to say accounting, because that usually people think of it as from a financial perspective, but information accounting. So that way, in case of an emergency, they're able, but they do use the word digital. So again, it can be used in a variety of ways, how the food supply chain is now communicating with the FDA. So that could be a blockchain. It could be another, you know, thing going on. And there are many businesses out there that are using that, for example, even in healthcare or in driver's license. So the use of the blockchain is really just an information portal. And but then there's overlays of the legal issues, the compliance, the identity, the privacy. So but in answer to your question about the print, I know I kind of went around the robin here.
Fine.
We do have print publications, not just mine, others. And like I said, there will be hyperlinks to those publications as to where they can go. And, for mine, for sure, they can get them at Amazon, but for the other publications and online portals, like we'll be listing yours, as a resource, that will be a hyperlink. So.
Okay. So one of the things I like to do is, talk about how we can relate this to you, the audience. Maybe talk about like how, what's in it for them. Uh, you know, let's talk to the audience for a little bit about all this cool stuff that's going on.
So you mean in terms of just blockchain in general or BLI?
Yeah, I think all the above. Either, we have a lot of entrepreneurs that watch this show, stay-at-home moms and dads, people who work from home. How can they maybe get started the right way, I call it. Just opening up an exchange account is just the first step. You got to take some precautions, some safety measures, like you said, do your own research. Why don't you expand on that a little bit?
So the way that I view BLI is your membership is like getting a library card. You're opening the door to a world that you might not have known about. And so it's an easy way, a quick way for you to research, whether it's artificial intelligence, Bitcoin, any of the other topics. It can get overwhelming, the amount of information and material. So, and you're going to see it on major news platforms, Bloomberg, everywhere. It's important for you to understand that innovative technology is impacting us from the first time that it existed. I mean, our cell phone, it used to be huge. Now it's smaller. It's, compact. The internet, I think we remember, the Katie Couric line, what is the internet? That type of thing. It's the same thing, with blockchain. Basically, as the technology evolves, it just kind of gets integrated in our ability to do emails, social media, that type of thing. So it is important for us as adults to learn about what this new tech is. We don't always have to be a coder to understand it, even though if you like that, there are definitely hackathons and other things that you can do. But understand that it can be used in education. Artificial intelligence is being used in the educational system. I, as an educator, know that it's being used to write lessons. It can be, Bitcoin and Ethereum can be used in business sales. So if you are trying to be profitable in your business, it's important to know what the tools are that can help you create that profit. Not to put people out of jobs, but maybe to streamline. Just like when you go into an Aldi's and you see the teller and you see the machine where you can do self check-in. So the machine hasn't eliminated someone, it's just made it faster for the people to go through the line so they can move more people through that line. So technology isn't bad, but you have to look at from a business perspective, how can you integrate it? And in order to do that, you need to educate yourself. If you have no interest, but just from a personal perspective, it still is important as a consumer for you to know what these products are, because again, AI note taker. So many of us have opted in, but I've decided to opt out because of privacy. I don't know where that information is being collected. So, again, just like when the internet first happened and we were all concerned about our protection of our children, now we are very online. We think we're online savvy, but we're also online open. And as a result of being online open, that means that we have put more of our private identity out there, more of our personal life out there, more of our financial life out there. So it is important to know, do we need to protect it? How do we protect it? And then from a family perspective, me as a single mom, when I was growing, when she was home, I also was very thinking about something that is basic. Does everyone have a will? Because not everyone has a will. You need to have a will. And I'm going to, harp on that. And you can contact me if you need to find some reliable resources to have your wills created. But the reason why I mention that is if you are buying Bitcoin, if you're buying digital assets, if you're buying NFT, just like I am, your family needs to know. Because if you don't show them how to access those wallets, even though everyone says, don't tell anyone your seed words, if you don't have someone in your family that knows how to access your wallets, or in case of an emergency, it's going to stay on the blockchain forever. And as a result, that wealth that you're trying to create for your family will not be benefiting them at all. So, with that, I've created some more books of the best 5-minute crypto wallet organizer. And I also have a digital asset organizer. I did it for my daughter because I realized that sometimes we have wallets on the computer. Sometimes we have it on the phone. Sometimes the verification comes through an email. Sometimes it comes through the phone. Sometimes it comes through Authenticator. You and I might be very comfortable going back and forth and all that. But someone who's new, who doesn't do this every day, is going to be looking at this thinking, where do I go to authenticate? And unless you have a system in place, unless you've written it down, it's not intuitive. And that's why I created Crypto Mom 2, because none of this space is intuitive. You have to educate yourself. Now, for those that are younger, you grew up with this tech. It is probably more intuitive for you than for me. But that doesn't mean that someone doesn't need to know. So again, this cuts across every family who's listening. Whether you're in business or not, you need to sit down with your family and have a conversation about the assets that you have, the assets that you think you're going to have. Just like you talk about the house, you talk about the car, everyone needs to talk about digital assets. And if you need help with that conversation, reach out to me. That's what the BLI is all about.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. And the only thing I'll add is on the business side, I would always say compliance is career insurance. So that's, a big part of
Yeah,
doing business in the digital
I love
age.
it. I love that. Yeah, you're
Yep.
right.
Mhm. All right, let's talk about the fun stuff. We met because of the CBDC cruise, and we do want it inclusive. Let's say that someone in the family is in the industry, but they bring their spouse or even their kids. We want to be able to have some resources there for the beginners, and have networking events and things like that.
So we have, I'm
So
pulling up the cruise. It's just taking a little bit. So we have this really, really cute little narwhal, and our little narwhal is actually going to have his own little story with the family of adventuresome narwhals. And we're actually going to be doing some sort of creative hackathon discussion on our cruise about protecting the ocean. So we're all about creativity, and so we've added that to the mix. But it's not Miami, I've been told. It's Fort Lauderdale. And so I will fix that. But it is November 16th. It's an 8-day cruise. I'm super excited to be going, and it's all about conversations and fun. And because we are on a wonderful cruise ship, that means that families can attend. And while we're not to exclude the families, but, in terms of either husband or wife or whoever. While one member is attending the panels and discussions, or both, then the kids can also be out having fun. So we definitely have 12 hours of conversation, and we're going to have awards, and it's going to be a fun time.
yeah, I think so too. And it'll be, the networking, we're in this digital society right now, and being able to gather together, meet people face to face, shake their hands, have a drink with each other or a meal. That's super important. But we're all there to do business together too. So there's a lot of value in that as well, in building these relationships.
Yeah.
So we'll have plenty of opportunity for that as well.
We'll have plenty of opportunity. I'm showing the cruise website, and definitely,
Looking good.
cabins are definitely limited, but again, we have on the website, we have the the trade show, we have the dinners for networking, we're going to have the award panels. I know we're going to have a women's conversation panel. The topics are still evolving because there's so many that we can have. And you're going to be, if you're interested in pitching your tech ideas on the cruise, you'll have that ability to, and then there'll be some constructive commentary on how your pitch went, so that way you can learn and improve. And then, of course, we have our foundational sponsors. There you are, Goose Magazine, and the media sponsors, and then down to CBDC Cruise. So we are November 16th, right before Thanksgiving. It's a great way to kick off into the next year. So this will be fun as well as educational.
Yeah, and there'll be downtime to have fun, or even your own personal time if you have to get business done there. So it's we get to work from wherever we want in this industry, so that's a plus, and love that aspect of it too.
Yeah.
Mhm. So we're getting close out of time. Anything else that we missed that we want to make sure to cover?
Let me think. I guess the biggest thing that I want to share with everyone who's listening is enjoy the ride. Again, do your research, make sure that you're fully vested in the information that you're collecting, and know the resources or where you get the information, and check it from multiple resources. If you only get the answer from one resource and the other resources are a little bit contrary to what you've just seen, then just use your intuition. Again, nothing that I know that you and I are saying here is investment advice, legal advice, or financial advice. But if you're going to take this journey of putting funds into an ETF or a token or an NFT, enjoy it, but don't expect a lot from it. And if something happens with it and you have some profit from it, then that's great. But again, understand that this is an industry that's developing standards and protections. And as much as I don't like the idea of over legislation from I know for the consumer protection perspective, we do need legislation, because sometimes the blockchain companies that are developing aren't ready yet. And yet people are investing in them and they're believing the hype. And so I guess that's where, I would just say for everyone, take it slow. And if you want to take the risk, then understand what the risk is, and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, that's a great message. And I like to also add that, hey, think of it as just this evolution of the internet. Where did we come from, the mid 90s till now, and the companies that were created, the services that were created, and blockchain, crypto is just, part of that internet. And so, where is this industry going to be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now and into the future? So, the details that you're talking about are super important now, but don't let these barriers stifle you in wanting to learn more, and take some baby steps into it, and then work your way up, because this is going to be pretty normal here in the future for us.
Yeah, the other thing I do want to mention, because I've been a victim of this too, learn about cold wallets. Because if you don't own your crypto, and if it's on an exchange and that exchange closes, you've lost your coin. So make sure you're able to move it out, so to a cold wallet. That way you have control over it. And then make sure you know where your cold wallet is, because if you lose your cold wallet, you've lost it. And on my Crypto Mom show, I've heard so many, I won't call them funny because they're really not, but stories about how people had invested in Bitcoin years ago, and then their parents threw the computer out, not knowing that the wallet was on there, and they hadn't told their parents, and different scenarios, you just name it. And so now, it's like, that's why I'm saying, talk to your family, know where your wallet is, just make it work. So
Good
it's fun.
stuff. It is. Well, thank you so much, Jacqui Cooper, for joining the show today and let me pull some of these stories and good lessons from you. And we all appreciate that. And stay tuned for the next episode of Goose TV coming out soon. We are weekly. It is noon Mountain Time on Thursdays. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Talk to you everyone soon. Bye.